And cultural suppositions of the time. Very simply, these people believed in X. I can't convince them to believe in Y, so a compromise must be B, right? So,
but when B is something so extreme, do you agree with it? That's our question.
So, I don't agree with it currently, but I understand why it was the ideal legislation at the time.
Brother, I respect your answer and it makes sense. However, why is it Christianity what changed so much? And Islam, for example, 200 years ago, women were given exactly the same rights, maybe 1400 years ago to now.
It's not true that. It's not true that.
Give me an example.
Okay. Quran chapter 3 verse 50.
Okay.
Isa has been sent down to make his halal what was haram.
We're talking about jurisprudence.
No. Jurisprudence, same thing. Unless you want to say that God's morality changes.
No, I'm talking about since Prophet
Listen.
Since Prophet Muhammad.
No. Because what I'm talking about is from Isa. Okay.
It's changed after Jesus.
So you agree that the jurisprudence of different prophets have changed?
Yeah.
That's the fact. We agree with that.
Different prophets.
Yeah.
That's the divine mandate.
Okay.
Divine mandate, in
Good.
my opinion.
So
no
my explanation of certain discrepancies within female rights is that Isa does not come with a direct line of Jewish prudence, so people are going to interpret what Christ says in different ways according to their cultural suppositions. I notice that you're just going to interrupt me, so next time you speak I'm going to interrupt you.
No, sorry, go on. So I apologize. I sincerely apologize.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So, the point is this. We both agree that the Jewish prudence of different prophets have changed.
Yes.
Like for example, Quran chapter 3 verse 50 where it says that Isa has been sent down to make his halal what was haram.
Yeah.
So, the rulings and discrepancies of female rights is simply the fallacy of presentism.
Okay.
The fact is that Christ does not come down with a book on thick. He does not come down with a book of what is right and what is wrong. He gives parables, he gives certain moral teachings which could be interpreted in different ways according to the time.
But in our opinion, that's
the question is, do you believe the way that people that have interpreted women's rights were right? I do believe, according to what they had at the time, it was justified to believe in that because they lived in a time where the man had control over the household and had control over property. Now, when divorce became more popular and the concept that women had to live independently of their divorced husbands, then of course, what we see in later centuries, rulings of women able to own property, we then see that women are able to.
Using the example of Jesus that you just used doesn't quite work with Muslims though, because we believe
of course.
religion shouldn't have been this
religions are different.
Only for the Jews.
Religions are different. I believe that Isa was sent to the whole of mankind because according,
believe that.
Yeah,
Even
Bible disagrees.
Okay, what Sharia or what
you just do something
jurisprudence
against
does
us.
Jesus follow? What jurisprudence?
The Mosaic law.
The Mosaic law.
But he fulfills it and gives an alternative.
Right, but there's no other new law that he gives.
Yes, he is.
What new law does he give?
But he gives the church, which has the authority to bind and loose things on heaven and on earth.
He gave that to Peter.
So, am I assuming
Yeah, and
he
gave that to Peter in Matthew chapter 16. And in Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, he gives the keys to all of the apostles, which means all of the apostles have the authority to bind and loose. That's why, for example,
that's why Christians are
Roman Catholic.
Orthodox.
Okay, I understand. Okay.
So I believe all of the apostles were given the keys of the church to bind things on earth as it was in heaven. This is a typology of King David's kingdom, where he was given to his kingdom to bind things on earth as it is in heaven.
So long story short, as an Orthodox Christian who believes in the apostolic law, I might not be pronouncing it correctly, apostolic law, you believe that the church fathers in each generation have the right to interpret and even to change and modify laws. That's correct, right?
No, I believe that there are going to be different interpretations of the text. Synods are going to make dogmatic certain interpretations of the fathers. So for example, if we look at the Council of Chalcedon, we have the writings of Saint Cyril made dogmatic. So if he has an interpretation of a certain text within his letters that have been dogmatic by this council, then of course what is written within his letters are dogmatic binding upon me. So church fathers have different varying...
There's a correct interpretation.
If it is defined within a council.
What does that mean?
A council.
Ijma a council. So if the church fathers get together,
But could it be wrong? Could it be a wrong interpretation even if it is a council?
No, because
What if they did something that in the majority's view is unjust, but would it be something that's binding?
So a council that is binding, firstly, has two bishops and has the consensus and majority of the church.
If the consensus majority could be wrong, right?
Well, no, because you have two bishops which have the keys, You have
Peace
the
to what?
majority of the church, which is God's kingdom. Therefore, if you hold to the supposition that this is God's kingdom,
Yeah, but are
that
they
these
fallible?
these bishops,
Are
they
they
are
fallible?
fallible,
Yeah,
but they
they're
possess an infallible authority.
Okay, that's scary. To be honest with you.
That's not
scary.
that's not
Because if
scary.
they're fallible and possess an infallible authority.
No. So when
that's
they
a bit
when
like-
they properly actualize this infallible authority, then it becomes dogmatic. These are fallible people, which
The
can
same
be
thing
wrong.
happened. The same thing happened in Islamic history. We had fallible people that
Yeah.
had infallible authority. We ended up with 6 years after the Prophet's death, where Yazid was murdering Imam Hussein.
Yeah.
So same thing happens in Christianity. We had the Crusades,
yeah.
which could be the same thing as a
But
result. of something.
again, do you know what happened in the Crusades, right? It was the East calling upon the West, and the West came, and I am an Orthodox Christian, so I don't have to hold to the Catholic Crusades. I believe that probably the first Crusade was justified, the second and third, not so much.
Okay, but I mean, long story
I'm just
short,
talking about the essence of a fallible council, even if it's a majority.
But I've got a question.
or consensus.
You gave me an example of an infallible authority given to a fallible man. Now, aren't you just assuming that Islam's true when you say that?
No, I am assuming it, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
assuming it. But not necessarily, we're not debating anything else right now.
Yeah, of course.
So I can't assume it right now. You're assuming Christianity is true right
No,
now.
because
too.
you've given me an internal critique, right?
Yeah.
Because like, if we, this is why at the park I don't really like typically debating morality, because it's useless. The reason why is because, for example,
We're going from different
let's just say, for example, I give you the marriage of Aisha. Now, you believe Mohammed is a God-given prophet, right? I can pull to somewhat of an absurdity of your position. Doesn't matter. Sorry if that offends you. But
I can bring up the marriage of Mary and Joseph.
I mean, there's no evidence.
But church fathers do agree upon it.
No.
They do have a general
No,
assumption of
no,
age.
they say that they say she's at a tender age. There's no verbatim age given to her.
Yeah, that's true. But the way they interpreted back in the day, as opposed to now, not right now, we just
The
say,
only-
the text says
the-
tender
the-
age
the only-
or young girl.
the
But
only-
back then they always said
there-
3
there's-
years old, 9 years old, 5 years old, 10 years. Do you know what I mean?
There is no. Well, the point is, if you have different varying opinions on one person's age, which I don't grant, the only thing that I've seen from church fathers' writings on Mary's age is a photo evangelical of James, which, by the way, doesn't actually give her age. It's just that she's 18 in the text. If you actually read the photo evangelical of James, it's only the Catholic Encyclopedia's reading of the photo evangelical of James that gives the reading of 13. But no, the only writings of the church fathers that talk about her age is a tender age. The Talmud even says
Whatever you assume from that, whatever you
verbatimly.
assume from that, whatever you take tender in your mind and think of that. That's
Okay,
up to you.
let's go back to what I was saying now. Regardless,
So what do you say about
moral,
Talmud?
moral arguments are pointless because they assume that my God is the one that is given this
Can you
description.
put about the Talmud? What you said about the Talmud?
I said the Talmud, it never actually gives a commentation of Rebecca's age. And in fact,
the Talmud never gave what?
no, actually, no,
The Jews agree with
no. By the way,
Christians, they
read
literally
the
they pick and
Talmud.
choose what they
Torah is
agree
for the
with, what they don't.
Torah is for the Jews.
Yeah, it
Every time
is.
they say go to the Jews, ask them about Torah.
No,
not
I
us.
don't. No, I
When you
don't.
quote Old Testament about killing.
The
all
Pharisees
that,
are no
they say
longer
that's
on the
has
seat
nothing
of
to do with
Moses.
us
I don't
discussing
believe
it.
that.
Now when we go to the Jews, they don't want to.
So,
It's like a Catholic
Yeah.
believe Mary was 12.
where did they say that?
Different sects.
Where did they say that?
Judea chapter,
Where does it say
page
that?
105. Search up.
Okay, so firstly, the Pharisees no longer sit on the seat of Moses. They can no longer say anything about the
I'm
Torah.
going to tell you from now, you know more about Christianity than I know about Christianity. So you're telling me all this, I actually don't understand what this means, innit?
Okay, so it says in the Bible that we should listen to the Pharisees when they sit on the seat of Moses. I don't believe they no longer sit on the seat of Moses. They no longer have the authority because the temple has been burnt. Christ has raised his kingdom up and he has victory over death. So I take it then that we should listen to the authority given to the apostles and what they say on the text. I can grant you that they say that she was of a tender age.
I'm not interrupting you.
You just interrupted me.
He just interrupted.
He just interrupted me.
Ignore him, ignore him.
You can't talk to them. If they want to, am I forcing you? If you want to talk
It's not to me. I don't mind speaking to him.
yeah, if you want to talk to
But to be fair, he's a respectful guy. To be fair, Wallah, he's a respectful guy.
Right now he is. I'll give
He's
you
respectful guy.
Right now he is. But earlier,
Carry on what you're saying. I'm doing
Yeah, okay. So I take
To
it.
be fair,
that's the reason why I mean him even engage
he's
in
a respectful guy, you know what I mean?
But right now, I'll give it to you. You're respectful right now. Honestly.
What's your name? Thomas?
What kind of Orthodox are you, by the way? Are you
Eastern.
Greek?
Greek.
Okay, fair. So, I mean, going down, we've had so many little discussions, going back to I think what the conclusion of our discussion could be, very conclusion is that, would you say Islam, what was there for 1400 years till now, has changed very little? And whereas Christianity has changed since the death of Christ, or since the disappearance of Christ, whatever you want to call it, it's changed drastically. Throughout it's so many different, and it's so, for example, what your belief and your practices today is
They've had more time.
vastly different So they've had more time, which is fair enough. But even
Even
on
if you
their,
live 1400 years
Yeah.
to 600 years ago, let's say,
Yeah.
is it different? 1600 years ago,
I mean,
Christianity.
Even, for example, your jurisprudence and your beliefs, and for example, about women's rights.
It's just been- it's just-
women's rights
it's just been
have
refi-
constant. for
it's just
1400
been
years.
refined, so-
your beliefs on women's rights have changed drastically for
yeah.
2,000 years. Would you agree with that? Would you accept that?
So, I think you're just picking one aspect of something
Okay,
big within the religion.
it's
So,
a
if you
Christian-
ask me about Jewish prudence,
Okay.
I do think, for example, reactionary topics, like for example women's rights, would have been changed. Because again, Christ doesn't come down with this one book on thick. So then, for example, we still have discussions within Christendom whether the death penalty is acceptable. Because we don't have this Christ and his
Can I just ask a
Sahaba
quick
setting
question?
out
No,
different
that's fine,
rules
that's
on
fine,
jurisprudence.
That's fine. But does that make, not in an offensive way, does that make Christianity very wishy-washy then?
No.
Christ didn't have a book. Many of his disciples had books, Mark, Matthew, etc. had books.
No.
And they're all contradicting each
Because-
other. And we're all just guessing and doing some guesswork and picking.
Yeah.
And,
'Cause like, for
over the
example-
centuries and a millennium, we're just guessing.
Look at, for
picking.
example, the councils, right?
Would you argue
How do you
it's
get
wishy-washy?
certainty? How do you get certainty?
Okay,
That's
I get
the real question.
certainty. I get certainty from councils. So, for example,
But the fallible leaders, right?
no. So with the fallible
You, as an
bishops,
Orthodox Christian,
one.
get
Let me finish.
certainty from councils.
I like you. You're a fair moderator.
I think Catholics don't. Catholics don't.
Can I respond?
Protestants don't. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah. Go
So,
on, sorry.
for example, let's take the example of councils. Now, there are several different councils, local.
Sorry, can I just make one thing?
Yeah.
Ask a question, make it clear for us. The different sects of Christianity, whether yours is and the other ones that exist, do they all agree upon the authority of the councils that you're talking about?
Yeah, they believe in the 7 ecumenical councils.
So everyone uses them as a,
Well,
as a proof, basically.
Some of them wouldn't. So some of them that schismatized before any of the councils proceeding. Like for example, the Orientals don't accept Chalcedon.
Okay.
Because they disagree with the Christological view that there are two really distinct natures within the one person of Christ. So, yeah, these 7 ecumenical councils that are agreed by the Protestants, Orthodox, and Catholics.
Okay, nice.
What has happened in these councils is that there has been a heresy within the church. Then, because we need to refine our position, we've called a council to dogmatically bind things. So, that is kind of what I'm saying, right? I'm saying, although
Mohammed is bloody
we'll wait for
fraud.
it. We'll wait for it.
Hey, what are you
Mohammed is
talking about?
God. Mohammed is
Don't mind
bloody
her.
Oh, shut your mouth.
Smells like shit, man.
Don't mind her, man.
I know.
Mohammed smells like shit. Mohammed smells like shit.
Must be your upper lip.
Mohammed smells like
It's
shit.
the upper lip.
Mohammed of
It's upper lip.
Islam smells like
It's the upper
shit.
lip.
It's not a bad.
It's an upper lip.
To insult Islam.
Yeah.
100%.
The video. Wallah,
You know what? I've got to respect you. Honestly, our discussion has been very, very civilized, very thought-provoking. And what's your name again? Sorry, mate.
Thomas.
Thomas what?
Aquinas.
What are you on YouTube?
Gregory.
Aquinas.
Gregory.
Thomas Gregory. Yeah. So, are you on YouTube? I'm assuming you're on YouTube. Yeah. And it's been a really thoughtful.
You had a I didn't get to, I don't know how the discussion went a bit weird, but you talked to Mohammed Hijab. I watched a bit of it about the natural
Theology.
Natural theology, yeah. Talk about it. When I hate to debate you,
I just want to overview the conversation. That's fine.
because it didn't really end. I don't think, if I'm right.
Yeah,
You
Hijab.
just called your boy and then
He kind of left. Yes.
No, I mean, I've seen some of his videos. He's knowledgeable, but he can be very disrespectful, and I don't like that. If you're going to speak about any discussion like this, it should be respectful.
I think-
it should definitely be respectful.
So I think the fact that because you've personally seen me and I seem quite reasonable,
Yeah.
it's just that I personally have issues with the people where you think I am unreasonable. So
I don't honestly. First time I've come here, I'm from Manchester. I've never been here before, and
Damn,
I didn't
Manchester.
recognise you. So
We're just here chilling.
my mate recognised you and
Yeah.
he said that let's meet Thomas Aquinas of our era. So we came
I'm
over.
not Thomas. I'm not.
joking,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
joking.
So my discussion with Mohammed Hijab, I'll be fair and give his critique of the Trinity, and then I'll speak about my critique of Tawheed.
The Trinity wasn't even a part of the discussion. It,
It was-
started off with natural theology.
It
right?
started off with my question of Islam, and then it ended with the discussion of the Trinity.
Okay, go on, let's go for it. Let's hear it.
I want to be fair on the camera, and I want to give a fair. So he's running a logically extended critique of intentional collapse. So we believe in something called divine simplicity, the concept that God is identical to all of his attributes. So his critique is that if power equals God and love equals God, when he's actualizing his power, then he's actualizing his love. But that's assuming
Is
that
that
firstly.
Hijab's position as well?
No, that's not his position
That's
on
your
God.
position?
That's my position as a Trinitarian Christian who holds to an orthodox understanding of what it means for God to be simple. So his issue with that critique is firstly that there is no distinctions within the attributes which are identical to God. So we do affirm a distinction.
Love is power, which is destruction, which is
No.
whatever.
So I affirm that there is going to be a distinction between love and God, but I'm going to still say they're identical to God.
But there's still one.
There's still one, yes.
But there's a
Distinction
okay.
just means a lack of identity. My left hand and left hand are distinct from one another. They're really distinct, right?
Yeah, they
so
are.
we still hold a distinction within
But your
God.
left hand and right hand are not one, right? You agree that?
They're one in my humanity.
Okay, it's a bit hard to understand, but it sounds contradictory to me.
Okay.
But continue.
I'll just explain, because I know you don't want to critique, and I don't want to be unfair and get you to critique a philosophical
I'm not
position.
I'm not here to.
Yeah,
debate you about it.
absolutely
I just want to
fine.
hear your position. What his
So
position was.
we
My position might be
we
different.
affirm that there are distinctions within the attributes, but they are still identical to God. That's my first point. My second point is that reflexive identity, this concept that A equals B, therefore B equals A, isn't always true. And I gave the case of hijab, saying that hijab is equal to humanity. Everything that hijab has is going to be what is equal to what a human has. But not every human is equal to hijab, which then means that hijab equals human, but human does not equal hijab. You see what I mean?
It's a bit of a language thing to more than a logical thing, I think.
Exactly. It goes back to like, for example. That's the Satan. So, why is to be a Christian, for example? Why does it take a PhD to be a Christian? Well, that's what
I don't think it takes a
It's the same
PhD.
thing with anything, though.
I know.
Yeah. Like, for example, in Islam, it's very simple. God is God. God is one. God is just, especially from like the
Yeah.
mainstream Islamic point of view. He's got no part. He's got no son. He's got no daughter. He's
Can I?
He's God. He's
Yeah.
completely separate
Can I
from
ask you a
creation.
question? So, for example, if I go,
Why is it so complicated?
Yeah,
Why is the
I'm going to give you an
Christian
explanation.
nature of God so
If you ask some random old lady in my parish, what is God?
Okay.
She's just going to say God is one. Okay.
Right.
She's going to say that she worships the Son, Father, and Holy Spirit. She's not going to give you an explanation.
Right.
And it's just that the only interactions that you have with Christianity is academically or in debates. Sorry about that. So your only interaction with Christians is when you debate them, which means then you.
No, I rarely have a debate,
Yeah,
to be honest.
but when you don't, and you talk to some random old lady in church, she goes to church every Sunday, what you find is that she has a very simple understanding of Christianity, and that's good enough for her. So she will say the exact same thing, that she believes in one God, Son, Father, and Holy Spirit. She couldn't explain the doctrine of the Trinity, she still believes and worships in this God. And she goes about her day understanding a very simple Christian life.
I respect that. I respect that and I understand that. I get it. However, she's not even understood the most basic element of a religion, which is God. Like, for example,
But she does, but she says that
But she
there
doesn't
are
use the-
three
you just
persons.
said she doesn't learn the Trinity, so-
No, I said that she couldn't give a refutation of an argument of a Trinity by an academic. So, for example, we have a random old lady at church, and we have some random old lady in message.
A Jewish theology person, the ones that just go to synagogue, they're going to know about these kind of debates.
Yeah, like
And Muslims
a random Muslim in a mosque, a random old lady at a church, some random young lad at a synagogue. If I give them a philosophical critique of their God, and trust me, you can debate anything. You're not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to give you a sufficient answer to their question, right?
Let's go back to what the natural theology or whatever, because I'm
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you can catch it because there's a lot of things going on, and of course I know you're from Manchester, so take advantage of the people. Don't just speak to me. So very quickly, my critique is on composition. That his position of Allah leads into composition. Natural theology comes to the conclusion of a simple God that isn't comprised of parts.
Okay.
I want to keep that as short as simple. You can look into it if you wish, but I know that you're from Manchester, so take advantage of the other people
What
here.
did Hijab say? Why is his position
He
different?
didn't really give an answer to his question, my question. He just moved
What
to
do
the
you
Trinity.
think the pro-Tawheed guys
What I think the response that hijab should have given is firstly, now love doesn't actually pick out anything within God, for example, these are abstract descriptors, that there is a counterfactual dependency within God, it is not something which is temporal or physical, and that all these attributes are inseparable from the one whole, therefore his account of mereology would not consider these as parts. Now these three positions, that if you defend them well, would actually resolve the issue of composition.
I don't understand.
But again, my brothers, I would take advantage of the other colourful characters at the park.
It's been really nice speaking
Really
to
good.
Thomas. I really respect it. It's probably been one of the best discussions I've had with a Christian. And it's been so enlightening and it's been so civil. I really respect that. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, man.
You take care anyway.
Yeah, you take care, my
See you,
friend.
mate.
Have a good. Are you travelling back today?
Tonight.
Yeah. Have a good one
We
then.
just come to see family and then we'll be back.
Oh right, yeah. Come to see family and you come here, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're chilling in the park. We're chilling in the park.
Oh right, yeah, fair enough.
They're
But
with the kids on the slides.
They're doing
Yeah.
their stuff in the park. We do our stuff in the park.
yeah, I appreciate it, man. God bless you.
Nice one, mate.
Nice one. I always feel bad when I speak to good people like that because I wish something on them that they feel uncomfortable about, that being Christianity. So God bless them. I hope they come to the fullness of the faith. I truly love these type of people. And the thing is that as Christians, I don't think we should say, I wish they stay good in their own religion. Because if you truly love these type of people, I'd wish to see them in heaven, right? Because they seem like quite good people to be dialoguing for eternity. So all I could wish is that they come to the fullness of the faith, and that's all I wish upon them. And also, just very quickly, I am filming my own content now on my own channel. I understand that I got popular being hosted on other channels, so I'd appreciate it if you're to my channel, Young Bob. I'm filming exclusive content, and I'm also filming political content now. But yeah, that was good.
Big yourself up. Family, support Young Bob. Make sure you watch his videos, obviously, share his videos, support him. Okay?
That was actually a very good discussion.
Was it?
They really liked it. They
Amazing.
said that was the best discussion they've had with a Christian.
Wow, amazing. So support Young Bob family, okay? So support him. All right. Cut!